Hello and welcome, friends and community members, to this month's edition of the Baltimore SharePoint Users Group. I'm your host and community president, Shadidi Laser. I'm thrilled to be with you during this cozy holiday season as we kick off this month's session, which will be instant vintage session where we revisit great sessions from our vault in our library. But before we get into that, on behalf of Team BSPUG, happy holidays to you and yours. I hope you had a restful Thanksgiving holiday and that you're enjoying some well-deserved time with your friends, your family, and community. This is a special time of the year that we like to call our Holiday Standdown Period, which is a quieter moment to reflect, recharge, and begin planting seeds for the new year. But even as the pace slows down, our commitment to keeping you informed and inspired never ends or stops. So just last week, Microsoft Ignite wrapped up, and what a wave of announcements, demos, and vision setting for where our Microsoft ecosystem is headed. If you attended virtually or in person, I'd love to know what were your top takeaways and what new features or products are you most excited about from this recent Microsoft Ignite event. If you missed it, don't worry. You can always catch all the sessions on demand at ignite.microsoft.com. It's an excellent way to stay in sync with the Microsoft roadmap and prepare for 2026. Now, without further ado, let's talk about the reason why we're here today. In our vault, what we present to you is the Bespoke session featuring a powerhouse presentation by none other than Matthew J. Bailey. He's an author. He's a Microsoft certified trainer. He wrote the book on mastering Microsoft Teams and one of the trusted voices in Microsoft cloud architecture. And in this session, Matthew delivered a crystal clear walkthrough of how to build and manage Copilot Agents using Copilot Studio, governance and permission strategies to align agents with organizational policies, how to handle the publishing lifecycle of your agents from dev to deployment, and how to stay up to date with Microsoft's evolving Copilot roadmap. Things tend to evolve within technology, and one of the benefits of the instant vintage sessions is sometimes you miss the fundamentals. And secondly, it's great to see the evolution of our leading community speakers. And so you can get the time capsule by just going back and reviewing these sessions, which in certain cases you may not have seen. And so during the live stream, we had a flood of live questions from our audience across YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And many of those questions went into data compliance, governance workflow, real world Copilot use cases. So if you missed the live version, or you just want to revisit and take notes again, the instant vintage replay is where you need to start. So stay tuned. Join us next month in December. But for now, let's go back in time and enjoy the real world Copilot session by Matthew J. Bailey. Once again, I'm Shadidi Laser. Thank you for your support. And now I bring to you our speaker is a Microsoft certified trainer and who holds multiple certifications across Microsoft disciplines. Uh, our speaker is a co-author of one of the first Microsoft Teams books that have graced the bookshelves, as well as a book on business analysts. Um, enjoys the speaking at community events, conferences around the world, and has been a friend of the program here at Baltimore SharePoint for many, many, many years, has been a repeat speaker at our user group as well as our annual conference. I've said enough. I will turn the stage over to Matthew J. Bailey.
Well, hello, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you loud and clear. I'm going to mute
All right.
and
I'm going to share my screen real quick here. I'm trying to think how I'm ever going to be able to live up to that intro you've just given me.
well, it's based on a true story. Based on a true story. I just had to, go based on the history here. So I'm
All right.
going to bring you up spotlight here. So the show is yours and
I'll get sharing my screen here and move it over to my slides. Make sure they come up. Okay. So I won't go into presentation mode because I'm going to be flipping back and forth between my real tenant and the slide, so it's just easier to do it this way. But thank you so much for having me today, Shadid. And as you mentioned, I've known you for, I would say, over 10 years at this point, and gone to many
easily.
of the community, like what used to be a SharePoint Saturdays that you were a part of hosting, and many of your different user groups. Today I'm going to go into what we learned from deploying Copilot in the real world. So I'm sure everyone knows that if you include the early access program, Copilot's maybe been out for a year and a few months at this point, as far as when it left Microsoft's private used inside the organization. And there's been a lot of news, a lot of hype. I mean, in fact, to be honest with you, I want to say that maybe there's been more hype about Copilot and the AI than anything I've ever seen Microsoft do in their entire like 30-year history. So it's important, and but the only thing about it is, all of those glossy marketing brochures, all those webinars, about, come hire us to do this and stuff. It doesn't always end up to be as easy or as clear cut of what am I supposed to be doing so that I could successfully deploy Copilot or successfully go through a pilot with the right people doing the right things at the right time to evaluate, is this worth how much it costs? And we want to actually take it to the next step and deploy it broadly at whatever organization you may be. So here I'll just quickly go a little bit about myself. I started with, I've been in IT for over 25 years, but I started on something that I should be embarrassed to admit, but it was called Lotus Notes. It did pay my bills for 10 years, so I'm not going to completely diss it, but it obviously in the mid 2000s started to crash pretty bad as far as people using it or moving off of it into SharePoint and Microsoft technologies. So that's how I started in 2007. I've done a lot of different job roles, but I'm kind of in a TPM and an architecture engineering role with the Microsoft Cloud at the moment now. I've been working with Microsoft Cloud for over 10 years. I'm still a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm an author, and ironically, this was my first book I wrote maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I actually launched it at Shadid's Baltimore user group at Christmas time. I remember I was giving away copies. It was pretty neat how many people showed up to support me. I was very appreciative. I thought that was really neat. And as I mentioned, I've been in different roles. Sometimes I've done admin, some development, still training now as project management. The reason I like it is because I feel like I kind of know almost everything that is going to happen, good or bad, or could go wrong from anyone who's going to get involved in the project. Makes it a lot easier to be successful with your work. Of course, everybody's loves the new AI, loves new Copilot stuff. So I've been spending a lot of time learning that. And if I don't know an answer to your question, I will certainly try to find the answer. If you'd like to follow me or say hello, I'm on LinkedIn at Matthew J. Bailey 1. So jump into the real content today, because I know that's why people have shown up to it. So we're going to go into the things that I've learned or had to do or realized while going through a beginning to end deployment and discussing their deployments with other people at multiple organizations. So today, depending on the type of organization you're at, you may have a lot of questions from people inside your org that want to make sure that before you even touch AI, Is this going to be okay from a legal perspective, from a human resources perspective, from an information security perspective, from a risk perspective? There are a lot of different things that I wouldn't have even thought myself that may come up that people are going to ask you about and that you need to prepare for and understand where you're at in this process should these be people that work at your org who are going to inquire. Next, we're going to go through a lot of the options of how you can either include or exclude or manage the data that somehow gets itself into Copilot's semantic index, because in many orgs, what is very likely is anything that has not been properly secured or shared either from your OneDrive for Business account or from your SharePoint sites may be accessible to a much broader audience or even the entire organization that you did not realize. Copilot will surface anything it thinks to be relevant. So something such as an accidentally overshared HR offer letter with an employee's name and the salary could accidentally surface in Copilot and cause a pretty bad situation once people that were not supposed to find out discovered it. Additionally, you just may have data such as PII and PHI and other information that's not supposed to be shared widely and needs to be encrypted or secured that has been accidentally overshared. I'm going to go into some of those things as well. I'm going to go over some of the other pieces of what I feel would make a successful Copilot rollout, which is, prepare, 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 and push, push, push. You need to have great training plans. You need to have adoption plans. You need to have resource centers. You need to have video training. You need to have brown bag sessions, Q&A, check-ins, user submissions of what they've done, what they're going to find value about it, what they did, and how much time they may have saved. And then after that's all done, if you're still standing on the top of the battle hill there, then you have to kind of come to the end of this entire process, which I'm kind of labeling the Copilot journey, so that you get to the point where you can finally make your own decision of, is this something you think that you should go forward with, pay the cost for the somewhat expensive licenses and deploy it broadly, or do you think it might not be the right time to do so? And then I've got some other feedback on the last page from some and what I felt was a relevant news story on CNBC about Copilot in a survey of CTOs. So I'll quickly go into this part before you deploy Copilot. So these were some of the questions that I was asked. I'm certain there'll be more somewhere out in the world, but these are the kinds of things that I've had to find answers for myself during a deployment. So number one was, does the data inside my tenant leave the tenant in any way to train Microsoft's LLM models and then potentially be ingested to a public model, which could then be basically accessible by sharing your private data to anyone on the planet who goes to ChatGPT or Copilot.com. So the answer to that is no, if you're using your business or school accounts that are protected by Microsoft's secure and privacy statements for using their LM models. I will say one thing, and I'll show you on the diagram on the next screen. There was a bit of a surprise because mostly everyone was under the impression that anytime you make a prompt, it leaves your tenant, it goes to the large language model, finds your response, and sends it back. That everything was encapsulated solely in your tenant. I found out somewhere down the road from Microsoft that that isn't completely true. Once the prompt leaves your tenant, it goes into another area of Microsoft's tenant where they have the LLM models and gets the data, sends it back, and does not keep it in any way. So it's still within the Microsoft 365 boundary. And I have not had anybody tell me that that was a blocker that stopped them from going forward with Copilot, but I just think it's important to at least make the clarification of, that that's happening, so you understand in case you have to go past some type of information security or legal risk assessment. Next, we have, are we confident that this data is secured properly in Copilot is going to start pulling data from anything a user has access to in the tenant. So as I mentioned, some of those examples, what if somebody in HR accidentally overshared an offer letter with somebody's salary? What if somebody typed someone's social security number or account numbers or licenses or whatever on a document and did not securely lock it down, didn't overshare it, and or did it even maybe need to be encrypted? This is going to depend. Part I'm going to go through here is how do you determine what's going on with your data, because it may be a very large issue, or if it was carefully managed or have minimalized amounts of content, you may have a much smaller problem with this. Next, are we able to track the user's behavior or interactions with Copilot? Yes, there are a couple options that you'll have to use auditing to see who has interacted with Copilot and potentially get their the prompts and the specific actions or the things that they have said to it, so you could, in case that's a requirement. And then last, can Copilot work with data that's encrypted by Purview? Yes, it does. It's not so much about the encryption, it's about who did you share the file with that can unencrypt it. If it's the same thing, if you have the access to the file, your Copilot's going to show it. If you don't have access to the file, Copilot is not going to show it. And if you need more information about that, you can find it on Microsoft 365's Copilot privacy page. Real quick, this was just this diagram has probably been on everybody's slide presentation or webinar on the planet at this point, but I just wanted to kind of quickly go into as it goes through the steps of what's happening with your data from here, from step 3 to 4. This is when it actually leaves your tenant boundary there and goes into the large language model that's still in Microsoft's tenant. It's just not in your personal one. Then it comes back and then it goes down and completes all of the transaction to provide the data that you had requested. So next, the second most popular question I've had from users was, where does Copilot get its data from? And the answer is, depends on where you're typing and what you're typing into it. So where does, in this case, here I'm using Copilot as a flyout menu in one of my apps as my example. And you can see that in this particular case, because I had data in my OneDrive and in my SharePoint online sites that I had permission to, some of the data that's been found has come from those sources. Additionally, though, in this case, you'll see some of the data has come from the web. Microsoft tried to make it pretty clear which data came from which, particularly with the little numerical references that you'll find. I'll go back to the next one. So here's an example of, once again, where's Copilot getting its info from? You can see here, if you go to copilot.microsoft.com, I think people may also refer to this as Copilot for the web, that there's going to be two options for you. And the validation that if you're signed in with your educational or business account into a paid business, that type of tenant, that you're going to be covered by commercial data protection, which is why you're going to see the little green badge. I'm going to show you a real quick example of this. Is option 1 is information from your tenant potentially mixed with information from the web. Option number 2, solely information from the web. So let's go over here real quick and get to my little copilot.microsoft.com. Here we are once again, work, web. Come over here. If I want to see, creating a requirements document for Acme Inc. In case everyone doesn't know what Acme Inc. is, it's the fictitious company that Warner Brothers created for the Roadrunner and Bugs Bunny cartoons decades ago, and it's very popular that people continue to use it for their pretend stuff. So I have some pretend documents in my tenant here for Acme Inc. And as you can see, this is pulled from my specific areas here of content that I have put with the references to the actual files here. So you can see I had a requirements document that I just was in case Acme Inc. was going to migrate to the cloud with ShareGate. I have some Microsoft syntax demos I've been doing that are like dynamically generating content off of scanned resumes and offer letters being triggered, where I used Acme Inc. and things such as that. But if I come over to, if I go over to the web portion and I type in this exact same thing, you're going to see that my results are solely going to come from websites, and they'll be different. So here it's basically just going to go out to any website that it has referenced to be high ranking. You know, it's like kind of like the search index thing on Google. How do you get to be the first site or the second site? I think it's the same concept mostly, that whatever most relevant sites that had Acme and requirements documents were used to pull this information. I have heard some people that say that in some cases they actually just take data from both and then compile what they need. It's going to depend on what your specific needs are for the activity that you're doing at that moment. So that's that slide. Let's go on to the next one here real quick. Use statistics and auditing. So there's a few things here to kind of get a handle on what is it that people are doing with Copilot as far as what they're requesting of it or the kinds of things they're trying to find. Additionally, there's usage reports, which are based on Viva Insights. There's a free report I'm going to show real quick, and then there's enhanced report with more specific metrics, but it requires a Viva Insights license. The audit logs are basically just the same, you know, that interaction with Copilot, Matthew logged in, did this on that date, kind of a concept. And then if you need more details, such as exact prompts or larger types of requests, you'll have to have eDiscovery Premium. So I'll come down to my next slide here. Setting up the Viva Insights licenses, even for the free licenses, was a bit tricky. So as long as you have Copilot, one Copilot license in your tenant, you will see that you have a Copilot option, but within settings, as long as you haven't intentionally disabled Viva, you're going to find that Viva Insights is going to have its own admin panel as well. And you actually have to add whoever it is that wants to look at these reports in here so that they'll be able to have access. It was a little quirky. I didn't expect that, but it's just something to be aware of. On the next page, so here's a sample of the Copilot dashboard that you're going to be able to see once that's been configured. And as long as it's loading, I'll jump over there because it's been off and on spinning in a circle for me today, but I'll show that. And then Copilot auditing. In your compliance center, there's an auditing section here where you can search for activities. So I'll just pull that up real quick and give you a run through here. Let's see here. In your admin center, once again, in the main admin center landing, you're only going to see Copilot here if you have you've paid for a license. The settings for the Viva stuff is over here, but in general with Copilot, there's some very basic free reports here that you'll get, and then there's some other configuration settings and links to more resources here. But if you're looking for the usage statistics, you're going to have to come over here and go into Viva Insights. You have to add the Viva Insights app. If you don't, as long as it hasn't been disabled, you can find it in your app search there. And then you come over to your Copilot dashboard, and these, once again, this is just me, so there's only one license, but if however many people you have and however many things that they're doing are going to be the statistics that you're going to get. And why I feel it's important is because, you know, if you're about to buy 5,000 licenses and pay $30 a month for 5,000 people, I would think you're going to want to make sure that they're actually coming in here on a regular basis and using the different features that are provided with it. What you're seeing at the moment is free, just so your understanding. But if you're looking for something a lot more detailed to get advanced metrics, you'll have to buy a premium Viva Insights license. That's just a note on that. And then last, I'll come over here and I'll go into our auditing. This is just your audit log of practically everything on the planet that anybody's done inside your tenant. Once again, in this case, it's just me and the 10 people that I have. But if you're just looking for Copilot activities, all you have to do here is just click and then type Copilot. Oops, sorry about that. It's hard to get this thing to flip out without it going wacky on me. Okay, 17th time's the charm. Copilot. Here we go. Interactive with Copilot at the moment. That's kind of from a general end user. That's pretty much your option. And then I would just type myself in here. And then what would happen is I would, it would create a audit case that would be doing for the search, which depends on how long, how many people you've added to the search and how wide your date range is. After it runs for a little bit, then you can come back and get the results, and they're not necessarily attractive, I guess. They're kind of in that like JSON, raw JSON format. But if you come over here and you see we have some information here down here, and there's some of the activity, like in this particular case, you can see that I interacted with that governance document, but whether or not it shows the exact prompts I've had, I think I've seen some different different cases where it may show more and for the other. If what you have here is not enough for you, like I said, you're going to have to go to the eDiscovery premium and pay for that license to be able to do searches like this to get that information. Come back to my next diagram. So the Copilot Index, as I mentioned, it's going to depend on what your org has or has not done carefully to manage your data that's accessible throughout your Microsoft Cloud tenant. So some of the things I've seen people do to try to get a grasp on how bad is our problem, I've seen some people run PowerShell scripts to that are very complex, that basically just scan for files, SharePoint site permissions, like how many people can get into this SharePoint site, how many people have access to this file that has sensitive content in it, things such as that. There are also reporting tools that are available from third-party companies and from the new AI hub inside the Purview Compliance Center. There's a couple things with this. It has communication compliance, which is information that seems suspicious, like Copilot, tell me the salary of Jane in accounting. Things such as that. It might be tracking, people are saying things like that into it. And it also, as I mentioned, files that have what's considered sensitive content. I'll show you that quickly. Now, many organizations do not have a good handle on their permissions, and things are probably overexposed to in some manner or not. If you need to do a restricted SharePoint search, is a new feature Microsoft has released as a temporary solution to, instead of having everything in your whole tenant in the Copilot index, you can intentionally say, I only want it to show what I want at a site level into the index. The only downside to this is it's an include, and what's not there will be excluded, versus it's not a allow everything and exclude one by one. So it makes it more tedious to manage. And there's also a 100 site limit with that. If you're needing just to do small amounts of removal, or it's just something that you found that you want to immediately take action on, you can actually go into a SharePoint site at the library or the site level and then just go into the advanced settings and click unindex. I found that that happens pretty quickly. If you have something that's more of an urgent nature, you can remove the permissions at the site level on SharePoint. And then there's some new features coming out with SharePoint Premium or SharePoint Advanced Management that's offering kind of like ongoing access reviews, so that people are always always checking to see who's been allowed in here, and if they're not needed anymore, remove them. It also provides an opportunity to provide permission levels at higher than the site collection and anyone in the site. It's actually something you could say in the admin center, I don't want anyone other than these people to be able to share these things this way. So it's kind of like another layer of control that you would have, but of course it costs money. And then this one, I actually was just told yesterday about a trick, and I don't know if it works or not. I'm going to figure it out, but somebody had provided some PowerShell to me to see if it's possible to remove just one file at a time from the index without having to do a lot of other things. Maybe just one file has been accidentally shared, but everything else in the same location didn't. It was okay that it was that way, and you just needed to get rid of that. That is a possible option. I'm still researching. And then real quick here in the new compliance hub inside of Purview, what it does is it basically it's already searched and is surfacing what it considers to be sensitive data based on the rules that are in purview of what defines sensitive data. Some of them already come pre-created for you, of like social security numbers, account numbers, license numbers, things such as that. It tells you what's there, and you can go to see what the URLs are so you could take action on it. Alrighty, so we're moving right along, and hopefully I haven't made your brain explode yet, folks, but I'll keep going here with some of the things that we've gotten. So feedback from users. So I think that this, as much as you'll find as I get to the end of the talk, is that it's different for everyone. I think it's going to depend on what your job is and what your skill level is. It seems that this is a broad judgment, so I can't say it's going to apply to everyone, but less technical people who have more repetitive manual tasks seem to be a bit more impressed with Copilot, and people that are techie and all we do all day long is figure out how to break things or make something work or automate something are perhaps less impressed at the moment, but interested enough that they think the future is going to get better and probably something they still want to learn. They're just not like over the moon about it yet. So here are some of the comments that I've seen, like PowerPoint to start, but couldn't get a granular with fixing specific slides. So what they mean is, you could open up PowerPoint and you could have it with the theme that you wanted of your company colors or your slide designs, and then just go over to the right-hand side here and say, create presentation on blah, 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 and it automatically, or create presentation from a specific document that had all of the data in it. You could do that, and it automatically just creates all of the slides for you, sometimes with pictures. It's pretty cool. The only thing with it is if you had 20 slides and you said, you know what, I only needed to finish, or I wanted to fix half of the content on the bottom of slide 5, it's not quite that capable yet, and there'll be some manual tweaking will be required. Next, people have noticed that there's been some unexpected behavior when it comes to gender recognition. Copilot, in some cases, has incorrectly referred to the gender of somebody named Chris or Pat or all those names that could be anything. Additionally, if you start to inquire about things related to gender identity or gender recognition, Microsoft is definitely on the side of that's not important, and you don't necessarily need to be asking, and it may be rude even to be bringing up this topic. So just something that it is. Personally, I think everybody should be able to be whoever they want in the world, and it doesn't bother me, but that not everyone in the world feels that way. It's just an interesting, like, unexpected result that we figured out. Next, Copilot finding items in Outlook. It depends. Sometimes you can do things like, hey, I can't remember who sent me this email, but I remember something about a file or a test result or a security risk. Could you search through it? And sometimes it finds it great, but at other times it doesn't. I can't say I have exacts on why it does or doesn't work at the moment, but that's just some of the stuff we've gotten. Your prompts, the wording of your prompts do matter. You could sometimes try 4 different ways, but plurals or different words in different order or just a different word will get you different results. Some sorting of dates was difficult because it was searching it by the alphabetical name of the day of the week, not the numerical number of it, and I think it's Gregorian format. PowerPoint using your template, as I mentioned, open PowerPoint first, have your nice designs already selected, then tell Copilot to do what you want with creating it. That way it keeps your branding and saves you time from having to manually go to each slide to make it appear the way that you want. Next, if Copilot is unable to find a document, try typing a key and, I'm sorry, the / key, and then to the path of the file instead. So if you came over here and I had said, summarize here, now what you're going to see is, you see how it's got the things that I've most recently interacted here as my choices. But if for some reason you don't see your file here, you can go to the file in your browser, copy the URL, and then paste it here instead, and then that will get you the result that you want. That's just a little trick that I had learned. Okay, next. People have said Copilot's great for ideas, brainstorming, you know, like, hey, we want to have a company event. What should we do? Or, you know, I can't, what is the name of this slide deck I want to present? I'm really short on ideas. People said it's wonderful for that. Summarizing in 10 words or less. People have said that's good. Searching for items, or any amount of words I should put there. Searching for items where you don't remember all the details, but you may be able to remember the document name or someone's first name. Sometimes that works. And then, as I mentioned before, changing the words or the order or the plural or singularity of the word here is where it matters, will get you different results. And then the last one with the summarizing of email chains, this depends, because if you have 15 people on an email and they've all responded perfectly in order, it may work great. But if you get anyone out of order in any of that chain where one copy had half of what the other person said, but then somebody else is still replying to everything in most current order, it's not necessarily going to turn out so well. Last here, popular uses of Copilot. So what I kind of struggled with a bit in the beginning was I had thought, how do I go about trying to explain to people what Copilot can do? And you know, at first you want to just make splashy videos, or you want to say, hey, look at this, look at this. And I didn't find that it worked very well. And I found a lot of people were kind of still like looking at me with their head scratching. So what I thought, and this was some advice, some just recognition of how people were behaving, get what the people's problems are working with Microsoft 365, and then figure out if Copilot can offer a solution for it. So, for example, somebody may have commented, I really hate how I can't go to one place and find all of the information I need to prepare for a meeting. So going to copilot.com, you may be able to type these different prompts in to get this kind of results you need. Create a meeting agenda from this chat. I'll show you that in a moment. Prepare for weekly meetings. Prepare for my meetings this week. Help me prepare for my meeting with blah, blah, blah's name. Prepare for my next meeting, whatever's on your calendar there. These are the kinds of things that you may offer to someone to help them solve their business challenge. It's here with summarizing vast content in the chat. So here's an example of create a meeting agenda from a chat I've had in the last few days. Here I've got in my little pretend tenant. I've got over here, oh, there we go. Go back to chat. I have some pretend people in here. Chris is one of my pretend people. And what I've been chatting with him back and forth about, you know, he's recognizing there's some risks and a lot of questions people have about the fact that we're talking about piloting Copilot in our tenant. So he's asked some things here. I've done some responses. I think it's good that we start a meeting at this point. So I can just come over here and say, create a meeting chat with Chris, or I'm sorry, let me just go back, summarize this for a meeting agenda. So I need to clarify, Copilot can't create things for you. Like it cannot go, at least I've not been able to figure out a way for it to actually create the meeting, but it can at least give you the bullet points so that then you can take them and then go paste them into a meeting invite yourself manually by coming over here and then putting it in the details and then adding Chris and then sending it off. So that's, let's see here, there we go. And there you go. All right, so back to our slides real quick. So let's get on to our next thing here. Copilot rollout training adoption plans. So I think it's important, and additionally, Microsoft has so much of this stuff out there for free that's accessible. It's kind of bonkers just how much is out there. But I do think it's important because People will be very excited to use Copilot at first and even get in on a beta that you may be testing at your org, but getting them to continually use it and continue to get them to learn more so that they can use it better is not as easy as just getting them to try it out in the first place. So if I come over here, what are some of the things that I personally feel would be important if you're going to do this yourself at your organization? I would say that Copilot needs people, resources, trial and error, and other things to succeed. Before you actually roll out, I think it's important to prepare, figure out how many licenses you're going to try initially and who the people are that you're going to give those licenses to make sure that there's a vast array of different types of users who may find different parts of Copilot important, but yet at the same time, people who may never or hardly log into their computer might not be a good idea to be included on your Copilot pilot. Next, having lots of videos, instructor-led training on how to use Copilot, probably by app is something that would be very helpful because people do kind of want just the way I'm here. I'm having this webinar with you. I'm interactively showing you everything and giving you examples. The reality of it is it's the easiest and most effective way to get people going as quickly as possible. But having self-led courses, sharing ongoing tips, email or in a team posts, having weekly or monthly Q&A or brown bag sessions where it's just like an open session where people can just drop in and ask or get assistance with what they need is helpful. Creating a SharePoint Center of Excellence. What I mean by that is just create a SharePoint site, and inside of that site have things such as a Microsoft list or resources from Microsoft on prompts or questions we found to be frequently asked. Who would be your contact if you're having problems with it? Upcoming training events, use cases for Microsoft, all sorts of PowerPoint slides and files and documents that are free all over Microsoft Learn's website. It's good to just have a centralized location for people that they can just go right and hopefully find what it is they're looking for. Adoption, creating a team to share thoughts and questions, post tips, reminders, tracking user activity. As I mentioned, I showed you how to track user activity from our admin centers. And then the analysis, I think it's important to continually get feedback from the people who are in your pilot, telling them what they did or didn't like about it, and if it provided specific examples that actually saved time so that you could calculate a cost savings based on the results. Last section here, we're going to get into the last part of my webinar, and then we'll see if anybody has any questions. But as far as feedback, because I feel that the most just kind of like real world based report, I had misspelled that there, was on a CNBC article. And here, if you want to see that, you can go to the feature of Microsoft Copilot on CNBC. What they had done is, due to the fact that Microsoft does not offer at this time the specific number of paid Copilot licenses globally that they have in their subscriptions. So it's really hard to know how many people are or aren't buying Copilot yet. So what NBC did is they went out and surveyed CTOs at several large organizations, and this was the feedback that they found. Numbers of licenses in a trial or purchase varied widely. You'll see down here that Coca-Cola had mentioned they were piloting it without disclosing how many licenses they've had. I've heard of some people buying 3, 5, or 8,000 of them at a time. I also, Microsoft publicly disclosed that Cognizant, which of course is a premier Microsoft partner who sells Microsoft technology, has purchased 25,000 licenses. So it's just going to vary. I would say a universal opinion though about it is that Copilot seems to be a bit expensive at $30 per person per month. Some of the CTOs were kind of like, well, maybe if I could get a discount, or maybe if there were more features added. But then there were some people that were extremely um, put off by the price and said they wouldn't actually be interested in deploying it org-wide unless it was an 80% drop from that. So we're going to just have to tell over time, what with price and bargaining power and, bulk purchase discounts, if they will or won't ever apply. That's history has to kind of unfold for that one. And some of the other feedback that they said is it was a lot of people didn't understand what the prompts that they were supposed to use were to get it. So it doesn't seem like it's quite intuitive enough for people to just go figure this out. You do kind of need to give them training on how to interact and what to type. An additional one which I was surprised by myself, that some organizations have found that Copilot was so expensive that they've just started to go build their own using like Facebook's tools instead and connecting to their data via the Microsoft Graph. They did say that across the board, though, everybody loved the meeting recaps and the like, what did I miss in the meeting, or I missed the whole meeting, what happened, and the email summaries. That was a very broadly promoted thing that almost everyone loved. I had mentioned about these bulk purchase announcements Microsoft had made, and as I mentioned, it's the #1 request for Copilot is to get lower prices. So as I wrap this talk up, and I know it was a lot because my brain, it just has a lot of things in it, and it runs like a a little mouse on a wheel. The best advice that I can give anybody with Copilot is I think that it needs to be a journey, and your journey needs to have certain places and activities that you stop at and participate in to get to your destination, which is, do we feel Copilot will or won't be beneficial at our organization? So that's my last piece of advice for anyone who's considering or interested in using Copilot. And that's it. That's all. That's all, folks. As Bugs Bunny says. So I probably should have put his picture here, but I can go back to my main chat window.
There's
So
a couple questions. One from Twitter direct message from Reggie. And the question is, what are some of your favorite personal use cases of Copilot? So in the presentation, you've covered, by the way, well, let me get to my suggestion after these questions, but personal use cases of Copilot.
So for me, because we all have strengths and weaknesses as people, right? So for me, I have dyslexia, and sometimes when I'm typing my emails, they aren't quite coming as neat and concise and to the point as they need to be. So the coaching by Copilot in the email body that is giving me input of how I could cut sentences short or rearrange them into specific bullets and start with, like, this is the purpose of why I'm contacting you. I found that to be very helpful for me. I do also love the meeting recap or summarize what's been happening to create a meeting agenda. For me, those have been some pretty significant time savers. And then the one more would be, because I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and I get asked to go, maybe hire for a 1 to 3 day course, so I'll come and teach you something. When I've been asked to create custom content, that going into PowerPoint and telling Copilot to say, I need to do a custom presentation on Microsoft 365, just, go crazy. It coming back and creating 25 slides with pictures and topics and some text in it. It's just a great brainstorming concept to start from, even though knowing I'm going to have to go back and change some of the pictures or add things or remove them and such, but it's just so much better than starting from nothing. So
That's excellent insight. Also from YouTube, from Janelle S. And says, my boss is not a fan of AI or anything related to AI. Do you have any tips to increase Copilot buy-in at the executive level?
well, I'm very honest, maybe, I guess Shanita already knows about this about me. Like, I don't like sugarcoat reality. I I genuinely believe that we have begun the AI arms race amongst each other. What I mean by that is I've never seen so much interest from large um, publicly traded or private organizations to get into something like this in my entire career, because everybody already knows that if you can automate people's job functions and free them up so that they can do twice as much work or three times as much work, or unfortunately in some cases actually redo the work with bots and actually let go of the employee so you're not paying them anymore, your business advantage is going to dramatically go upward, and anybody else who's competition in your industry is not going to be able to keep up. And I would say most people have figured that out already. Separately, if you don't want to just get down to that cold hard truth about capitalism and how things run in the world, I do feel things like people, some people all have their strengths and their weaknesses, right? Like I am pretty good at some things, but as I mentioned, with sometimes like typing things grammatical or rearranging words, this genuinely helps me, and I don't find it to be intrusive. The thing about creating slides for presentations, that was a huge time savings, and people sometimes, they're just not great at coming up with ideas and getting you started, getting the juices flowing. I think that's wonderful. That at my org, currently where I'm working, I've never seen how much time the project managers who are responsible for sending out summaries, I'm telling you, they used to just be like half an hour sitting there typing about like everything that everybody said and did and who was supposed to take what action items out before they could email it to everybody. Those things have shown up in under a minute now. So there's some real world uses for this stuff that I think that not just from a competitive advantage standpoint, just that it makes people better workers.
Oh, that's that is a great insight. Now, final question, or I guess comment is this individual is new to so they're transitioning into let's say Microsoft technology. And the question is, should they learn Copilot or focus on a specific discipline such as Power Platform or SharePoint, since AI is so, let's say, in demand?
Sure. So it's funny because but she indeed knows this about me because she's known me forever. But I used to give presentations on like, should I start my career in Microsoft? And one of the unique things that I had done, I hadn't seen anybody else do, is I used to go out and actually track how many jobs were there for the specific technology every 6 months based on the adoption cycle of what Microsoft was pushing. So SharePoint come around 2007 all the way maybe up to 2015 was massive in job numbers, but they have dwindled off over time. Then Microsoft Teams came out, and then in the beginning, 2018, 2017, me and a good friend Melissa, who also has come to this speak many times at this event, there were almost no jobs for Teams at that time. But give it 4 to 5 years, and there were dozens of them at any time posted as being available because Microsoft's adoption cycle had like just shot through the roof and there was demand. So we're same thing, Power Platform. In fact, it was irony. It was Teams and Power Platform. All of us speakers were like, "Do I go here or do I go there?" The Power Platform ping, same thing. There were hardly any jobs on creating flows or Power Apps at that time in 2017, 2018, but over the few years, once again exploded and went through the roof. So I think there are still a good number of Power Platform jobs out there, probably more so than SharePoint or Teams, definitely more than Copilot. If you want something that you already know exists and you think you're going to be really good at learning to create custom connectors and custom Power Apps and FX mixed with some of that uh, ease, like that drop or WYSIWYG, I'm sorry, go to the screen, move things around, and that what's called load code programming. you think you'll be able to do that, I think you'll be stable. But what I would suggest is you need to at least a little bit each week keep up with and practice Copilot, because I do strongly feel that we're in that 2017, 2018 area where it's new and it's hot, but there aren't too many jobs, except I don't think that's going to be that way for a lot longer, especially since you can create custom copilots and you can start integrating plugins or pulling data in from other sources, and just everyone on the planet has gone AI bonkers. So that'd be my advice for you, to try to do a little both, focusing more on Power Platform, and then just keep monitoring it, if what I've mentioned is going to end up happening where the AI stuff's going to take over completely.
Thank you for that. And finally, this presentation, this session should totally be a book. It has everything that a good book needs. That is unsolicited advice. You did not ask for it, but it should be a book.
Well, if it does become a book, I can tell you whose user group I'm going to ask to speak at to announce it when it's published and give away free copies.
Hey, we definitely love to have you back. It's every the user feedback slide is gold. That is months of just interactions. And
Right.
so it's anyone who watches the replay will be ahead because they're leveraging what you've already been through.
Yeah, no, I try to make sure if I'm going to do a presentation that's going to, be very valuable, and I hope it has provided some value, because I know it can be harder sometimes to get that, real stuff that's happening, not just like the glossy marketing or whatever. So,
Exactly.
alrighty. Well, wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I mean, we had a few questions. Seems like people were interested, so that's great.
Oh yeah. So across people going to direct message. That's the interesting part. So but yes, it's as the replays come out, there will be more questions that will come up as well. So definitely thank you for taking the time to deliver this session. And I've learned quite a bit, so it's valuable for me and for many others.
All right. Well, that's great. I thank you so much for having me again, Shadid. It's good to talk with you again.
Likewise. So, on behalf of Matthew J. Bailey, Shadidi Laser, thank you for tuning in this month. Join us next month for our July session. July, fun fact, is the month where this user group started. So we'll have a few surprises in mind. Thank you once again for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your day or evening, depending where in the world you are tuning in.